Go ahead.
Okay. Well, good afternoon. Thank y'all for joining us. We are in our second month of the new year and also with our new Lunch and Learn. Today we have Miss Charlene Manning here today. We're going to talk about composting. She's done this topic many, many times. She is the compost lady. If you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand throughout or stay afterward. And we're coming to Charlene. She has been with us since the beginning, correct?
Very beginning,
yes.
20 years.
Very beginning of the Leon County Master Garden.
Okay, so obviously we're going to be talking about composting today. So first thing I want to ask, are any of you in here composting now? Very good. Did I hear my whole life back there? True. Okay, very good. Well, I hope those of you that have been composting will maybe pick up a tip or two today. I am not very formal, so if you want to make a comment or ask a question, I don't expect you to wait to the end of the lecture to do that. So feel free to talk out or whatever if you want to. And so, okay, I only have an hour. When I do this for the interns, y'all, my PowerPoint is 2.5 hours long. So I had to really condense it down. So today we're really going to talk about the very bone basics of composting to, I don't know, wet your whistle, so to speak. So anyway, I hope I kind of did it in enough order that you're going to kind of get the process. So I do what they call cold compost. I'm not really into in composting. You can make it as complicated as you want to, or you can do it just simple, throw it on the ground, and you know what? It'll compost. And that's kind of what I do. I do have a bin that I just don't throw it on the ground, but that's kind of what I do. And I kind of want you to realize, you know, you don't have to be a math whiz or whatever to compost. You know, you can compost in a very simple manner and still get good product from it. So, okay, so the benefits of composting is you end up with bigger and healthier plants by composting, because we're going to get to the best part of it, which is your microbes, and that's what does all the work. So you end up with much stronger plants when you compost. It also, oh gee, I can't see it. It also, on your sandy soils, your clay, so now it's easy, it's faster on sandy than clay, but a lot of y'all, do y'all have sand? Yeah, well, the composting helps to condition your sandy soil. So now it'll take a little while, you know, it's not going to happen overnight, but I started out with very sandy soil, and now I still have it in the yard, but in my flower beds and stuff, I mean, through the years, my soil is gorgeous in my flower beds from just adding compost to it. It's practical and convenient, because guess what? It's free. Anything that you compost more than likely is free. So, you know, how convenient is that? You just go out in your yard, dig your wheelbarrow load of it and spread it out, or use it, you know, in your pot plants. When you first pot up a plant, use a scoop full of compost in the potting soil, or, you know, it's just, and 1 inch of compost will feed your plants for 1 year. So I spread compost once a year, that in the springtime. When I'm kind of redoing my flower beds and going to lay mulch, I'll do my wheelbarrow and spread the compost there, and then I put my mulch on top of that. I don't fertilize any of my plants except flowering are the only ones I fertilize. I let my compost, all my green plants that don't flower, my compost feeds those. I don't do, but the ones that bloom, I do use the high middle number to get them to bloom. So, you know, I mean, how that's nice. Little back-breaking job there for a little bit, but, you know, after, you know, you just do it one time and you've got plenty of food for your plants. I was not going to hit on mulch at all because I don't have time, but I will just say this real quick. Remember, your mulch, as it decomposes, it is feeding the soil also. That's why you have to do mulch once a year, because it decomposes down into the ground. So if you're mulching and you're composting and mulching, you know, you got a twofer there. So anyway.
Do you put compost on your vegetable?
Yes, 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 yes. In the garden, when you're preparing your garden. Now, another thing about compost is you don't want to go real deep with it. So how many of y'all are tiller gardeners? Yeah.
How about the hand shovel?
I have tried for years and years, and I cannot convince my husband not to till. Pick your battles. But when you're using compost, you do not want to. You want to just scratch that in no deeper than what the hose, you know, length is, because you want those microbes to come up, which we will get to, come up from the bottom up to the top. So you don't want to feed them down low where they're lazy and don't have to, there's their food and they don't have to work for it. You want them to come up to the top, so you don't want to to put that compost in very deep at all. So kind of remember that. So compost, like air and water, it's an essential part of life. So, I mean, things compost, right? You throw fish guts out on, you know, when you clean fish, if you got a special plate, a lot of people bury them and use those for compost. But, I mean, it's a circle of life, and compost is just a part of it. It's going to compost. If it's thrown out and it's organic matter, it's going to compost.
Of course, you have to use it before raccoon get to it.
Yes. I'll just, in case I forget later, I'll just go ahead and now, if, you know, when you have a compost pile, if you just lay it on top of your scraps and stuff on top of the compost, you're probably going to have some visitors. I myself don't mind if I feed a raccoon or two. I actually have a possum that lives in my shed, so I don't mind that. If that bothers you, you need to dig. When you go to your compost pile, you need to dig a little bit of a hole, put your compost in it, and cover it up. But we'll get to more to that later. So, just like a human being, a compost has some basic needs that it needs in order to be functional. Just like us, it needs air, and it needs moisture, it needs to be warm, it needs carbon for energy, and nitrogen for protein, which we'll get to that a little bit later. But like I said, those are some of the same needs we need, and so those are some of the needs on your compost pile. Air is going to probably be one of the hardest, you think about it, component for your compost pile, because in order to add air, you're going to have to turn it. And now, you don't have to, it's going to compost. But if you want compost and not have to wait about a year, then you need to turn your compost pile regularly. I don't know, you know, I don't turn, so, but you know, a couple of times a year probably you would need to turn it and add the air essential in it. A lot of other ways it'll get air is you layer it up. You know, you're not going to squash it down, so there'll be air pockets, you know, in between your food scraps and leaves and that sort of thing. So it'll also get air that way. Air is also your main component on getting it heated up, which we'll get to temperature in a minute. But in order for it to compost fast, you need it at 140 degrees. And air is going to be one of those important, you're going to need to turn it. I don't turn mine. I get compost just as well. It takes a little while for it to compost, but you know, you don't have to turn it. But if you want it in 6 months' time, 4 months' time, or whatever, you're going to need to turn it. So moisture, the compost pile needs to be not soaking wet, but it needs to be as damp as a wrung out sponge. That's kind of how you want, but you need moisture to help break down the debris, and the microbes require moisture in order to function. So that is an important part of your compost pile. We'll get to more of that later too. So warmth is what helps decompose the debris that are, it's really not debris, but your scraps and stuff that's in your compost pile. You don't want it too hot, but do any of y'all do the thermometer and all that that's composting now? Or y'all just kind of doing like me, throwing it on the ground? Your compost pile will need to be 140 degrees, between 140 and 160, in order to kill weed seeds. So that's kind of an important thing to remember. I just don't put weeds in mine, but if you want to kill weed seeds and not pass seeds, you know, if you don't kill them, you put them in your in your compost pile, guess what happens come next spring? You just reseeded your whole entire flower bin. So anyway, warmth is just mainly needed if you're going to hot compost and want it to make compost quicker. And you need carbon for energy and nitrogen for protein, which we will go over what ingredients supply which one of those. But okay, so here is your recipe for your compost pile. It's a carbon and nitrogen ratio. Now this doesn't have to be perfect. You know, I eyeball it. I don't measure anything. I just kind of eyeball it. So your recipe is 3 parts carbon to 1 part nitrogen. And by the time we're through here, you'll understand why that is. So brown materials is what is your carbon. And that's what you add for your carbon element is brown materials. So always think of it as they're like materials that are dead is kind of how I look at that.
Brown leaves.
Brown leaves, which we will have a big discussion on leaves. So green materials is what adds nitrogen, which you have to be very careful with your green materials that you add, because you can get it over moist or you can get it overdone and you'll turn your compost pile anaerobic. But there's no ruining your compost pile. If your compost pile is too dry, and you can add water and you can add green nitrogen elements to it. If it is way too wet, well, guess what you do? You add the brown to it and mix that up to even it back out. You're not going to ruin your compost pile unless you put something in there that shouldn't be in there, like any kind of chemicals or something like that. But if you're doing food and natural things that you're putting in there, you're not going to ruin it. It may get unbalanced, but you're not going to ruin it. So you kind of get that 3 parts carbon to 1 part nitrogen. Okay, now we'll discuss a little bit about the microbes. The microbes are everything. Do y'all think, your soil is just not sitting there, doing nothing. There is a whole bunch of stuff going on inside your soil or in your soil. And microbes, fungi, and all are a big part of that. And that is what keeps your soil going, and that is what's feeding your plants, is the microbe activity. You have to have the microbe activity to break down the stuff that you're adding to your compost pile. That's how it breaks down, is the microbe activity. So, microbes, once again, need carbon for energy and nitrogen for growth. And it's your job to supply in the ratio that these microbes, fungi, and all of that require. So there again, you're going to kind of know, well, this is too dry, I need to add more nitrogen. Oh, it's too wet, I need to add more brown material. Material for composting are all around you. Start at home. You would be surprised what you're going to think of that you can put in the compost pile. It's not just anything out of your kitchen, mostly can go in there. So, okay, so now we'll just to kind of give you some ideas of what can go in your compost pile, we'll talk about nitrogen first. So that's going to be your wet, your green ingredients that you can put in coffee grinds. So never, 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 never put your coffee grinds in the trash can. There's no reason for them to go in there. Your compost pile absolutely loves them. If anybody here does verma composting with red wiggler worms, worms love coffee grinds. You can put the whole entire, the paper filter, it's going to disintegrate. It's not going to take it no time, in fact, just to dissolve to nothing. But your coffee grind should always go in your compost pile, not in the trash can. I have a bucket that I keep down by my sink, and all that stuff goes in the bucket, and then, okay, I'll try in the evenings to make it to the compost pile to dump it. But the bucket has a lid, so if I don't make it, I can always do it the next morning. I always have a fear of roaches having a party once I go to bed, so I always make sure my compost deal has the lid on it. So fruits and vegetables, that's a no-brainer. Y'all probably already thought of that. Grass clippings need to be done in a thin layer. Also, if you're using weed and feed or anything like that, I wouldn't put grass clippings in the compost pile. I use my grass clippings, I have a greenhouse, and that's what I put around my greenhouse to keep the weeds from growing up around my greenhouse, so I don't have to hoe or whatever around it. The grass clippings I just do, just put around there. You could leave your grass clippings on your lawn, would also be, but if y'all are like me and your lawn is Bahia, there is no way that, sometimes we break up. It's crazy what we break up sometimes on that. So grass clippings, yes, but be careful with them. House plants. House plants are another good item to go in your compost pile. But be sure you know why it died. Most of the time mine is due to, well, I overlove mine. A lot of times it's overwatering or whatever is generally what happens to mine. So as long as it's something like that, you can put it in. But if it died from something and you're not sure, or if it had some kind of disease or whatever, don't put it in your compost pile, because you don't want to spread that through all your other plants. Kitchen scraps kind of goes along with fruits and vegetables. Manure, Manure is another one of those iffy subjects. I really should take it off here, but I don't want to because I'm afraid I'll forget to tell you this if I do. But they're strongly advising the compost powers that be, are strongly advising not to use manure anymore because of all the chemicals, the pesticides, if it's in the hay, it's in the cow. So if somebody has sprayed their pasture, it is in and they eat it, it is in the cow and it is in their poop. And that is, you know, what you really want to be careful of.
Not just that, you have seeds of the plants, weeds
Yes.
coming out.
Yes.
They don't
Good
digest.
point. Very good point. I don't know if everybody said cows eat seeds and weeds and all of that, and you will reseed your flower beds too. Kathy?
The biggest reason not to use the manure is because hay fields are beautiful. There's no weeds. And to get those beautiful hay fields, they spray them with a herbicide, Grazine, and it has residual effect. It passes through the cow, and it's still in the manure at that point. And if you use that manure for your plants, they're going to die because Grazine is meant to kill broadleaf plants. It's great for your pastures or your lawns, but don't try to use it for your vegetables or your flowers.
My sister-in-law destroyed her whole backyard.
Yeah.
Manure that she didn't know
You
where
know,
it
years
came from.
ago, before the development of Grazine, you could use manure and you would make a tea.
How many of y'all in the 1970s put the cow manure in the pillowcase and put it in the garbage can? And oh my gosh, that was it broke my heart when they couldn't do that anymore. But do be careful.
And animals
Cow
that
tea.
don't eat hay,
It.
like chickens, if you're just raising chickens in the coop and not letting them free graze on anything that's hay.
Right, rabbit,
use that manure.
but anyway, I just want you, please be careful with the manure on that. And I hate to knock it because you know, I have respect for the cattleman also that doesn't, you know, wants a nice pasture, you know, wants their cows to be healthy and all of that. So it's kind of a catch-22, you know, with the people that are also raising cattle and stuff.
What about-
David Bradley is an expert in that field. He
What
has
about-
the most beautiful hay fields you've ever seen.
What about things
And
like
they didn't get that way by
black
not
cow?
using herbicide.
You know,
in the bag.
that's like you can get, you don't know where that manure's coming
I
from.
know
either.
you don't. Does anybody use that black cow? I don't know anything about it.
I wouldn't, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, but I would think it would say something on the package, surely, on there. Surely, I would think.
The other thing is sewage sludge.
Yes.
A lot of times they're spreading sewage sludge on these hay fields
Yes,
to get rid of it.
right,
And that's got lots of chemicals
Right.
and things in it too.
right.
Yeah. And they put it in fertilizer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Prune materials, you can I put little sticks and that sort of stuff in my compost pile. You don't want to put big old limbs, you know, but I do put things that you call prune. But just remember, it's just going to take it a while to compost. You know, it's going to take it a whole while to compost. So you know what I do when I go there and I want to use the compost and I got a couple of sticks, just move them out of the way and move them over and get them out of your way and carry on. So, but
Sometimes those sticks will create a pocket for the air.
yes, they do. I have I read an article where somebody raised sunflowers, and when they would harvest their sunflowers, they would lay stalks horizontal, pile compost on it, lay stalks vertical, and fill it up and do it like that in their compost pile. That way their compost pile, was able to put a lot of air. Tea bags is something people don't think about, but you can put tea bags. The little staple that's holding the tea bag, it don't even worry. It's going to disintegrate in no time. That's just a little. It'll be gone.
Are the tea bags plastic?
What?
No.
Tea bags, no? They're paper?
Paper.
Yes.
I don't know of any plastic. Does anybody else?
Yeah, I have plastic.
Really?
It depends on the brand. But if you look it up, it will tell you if microplastics are present in the tea bags.
Whoa, I did not know that. Good question, Susan. I did not know that. Another one, eggshells. Your eggshells, like coffee grinds, should never, ever, 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 ever go in the compost pile. They are wonderful. What, Teresa?
They should go in the compost.
Oh, did I say it backwards? Okay.
Repeat it 4 times.
Well, it sounded great in my head. But they should always go in the compost pile. They should not go in the garbage. So, you'll come to my house if I don't have a bunch of mulch and say my mulch is thin and you're looking at my soil, you'll just see little eggshells. I don't mind it at all. Actually, the birds need those eggshells during right now, while they're getting ready to start a new family for the year. It gives them a lot of calcium and helps make their egg shells harder. So if I had, it doesn't bother, I see it. It doesn't bother me if, it takes them a little while to break down, but if you just, like I said, what the hell, get a few eggshells in your flower bed, it's no big deal, but it's wonderful conditioner and calcium source.
Well, I know a lot of people say you've got to bake them and dry them and all that stuff, but all I do is rinse them out, set them in a little tray,
Yeah.
and then I put them in a baggie, and I take a rolling pin and crush them,
And crush them.
and I put them in a tall jar, and every time I plant my tomatoes, I put a handful of eggshells.
Right, there you go. That's another good use for them.
Calcium.
Yes,
So they don't have
So
blood.
save your eggshells. And I would imagine those of you who are fortunate to have farm eggs, I would imagine they're even way better than the shells than store-bought ones are. Okay, so that kind of gives you an idea of nitrogen. You kind of get the feel of what the nitrogen is in the compost pile. Now we'll talk about carbon. Dried leaves, which I have a whole slide on leaves, and we'll get into that further. But leaves, y'all, they're free, and they are the best thing. You can use them for mulch, you can use them in your compost pile. They are, leaves, they're just they're great. They are absolutely a wonderful, the trees give us a great little commodity there.
They also
Hay,
keep an acidic soil.
yeah, right. Hay, just forget that even exists. Because there again, your hay, know your source. And if you don't know your source, because of the graze-on and all of that, you're probably going to kill everything you have. One thing that you can do, that if you want to know if your hay's okay, is you can take a cup, Dixie cup or whatever, put hay in it, wet it till it's really moist, sprinkle radish seeds on top of that coffee cup, and I say radish seeds because they germinate so fast, and put a plastic, whatever, kind of create a humid environment for them. And if those seeds sprout, you're probably okay. If they don't, I wouldn't use it in your compost pile. And two, there's so much other stuff. Hay you would have to do such a thin layer each time. Hay, if your hay is good, is better for other sources, but really Manure and hay, you just need to forget that it even is a natural product. People don't think about newspaper. Newspaper is another great, a great thing to put in your compost pile. No shiny, no shiny pages. Cardboard is the same thing, but no shiny cardboard. Newspapers, the ink is now soy, and so it's non-poisonous. But another good thing to do with newspaper and cardboard is if you're wanting to, now this is a think ahead thing, if you're wanting to do a new flower bed and you don't want to get out there and break your back, you can put layers of newspaper, layers of cardboard, and then put the black plastic or mulch. You can mulch on top of it and leave it for a year, and then the next, say you do it in the fall, that next fall, or spring, that next spring, it'll be wonderful under there, and no weeds at all. I did that for the flower bed in front of my greenhouse, and it was in the middle of a hayfield, and it was years before the bahia and everything started creeping back in. So it stayed good for a really long time. So, but if you do newspaper, thin layers, you need to do it in real thin layers. And I would wet it down. A straw, we don't have tree bark. Tree bark can go in your compost pile. It's okay, but remember, it's going to take it a while to decompose. So. So just kind of remember, it could take a little while. How am I doing on time?
You're good.
Okay. One of my most favorite slides in this whole thing is the leaves. Pound per pound, leaves contain twice the mineral content than manure. So there's your manure substitute right there, is leaves. It improves aeration and the structures of most soil. Now you're probably going to want to chop them up. We have an X mark, and so my husband windrows it and then runs down it and chops them up real fine. Whole leaves, I don't know. I really like in the flower bed, if you're going to use them for mulch, which I do a lot of times, I don't like how whole leaves look. They kind of look unkept or something. But chopped up, they're really pretty in the flower beds. Grind or shred the leaves. That helps hasten their decay. And that includes oak leaves. I haven't gotten that question in a while, but all I have is oak trees. A lot of people say you can't compost oak leaves, and you can. Oak leaves, it takes a little bit longer because they have that kind of waxy on them, but I do it all the time, and like I said, it can be used as a mulch. Leaves provide so many free services. So the leaves are just you need to be doing something with your leaves if instead of just putting them in a bag. Now you can take your leaves and put them in a garbage bag, and just only your leaves in the garbage bag, set them someplace off to the side, and let them sit there 6 to 8 months, and you'd be surprised what kind of compost you get. They'll completely compost down in a bag. So my leaves, that's what we use in the garden. So while we're raking leaves, and we use a mule and go out to the garden and dump them in the garden and let them sit there, and then my husband tills them in. Like I said, pick your battles. Pine needles, yes, you can, but pine needles would be so much better used as a mulch. And as long as they're dried, you're not going to change anything. They're good to go, but they're better used as a mulch than they are in your compost pile. So that's, if you got a lot of pine leaves, you're gonna save bukus of money if you use them as a mulch. So one of the other things about, you kind of think, well, why are leaves so important or so good or whatever? But you have to kind of remember, so the tree roots go deep down in the ground where all that good micro activity is going on, and it brings it up through the trunks and out to the leaves. When those leaves fall, they have all of that nutrients and everything in their leaves that tree brought up from down in the ground. So that is one reason why leaves are so. If you don't get anything out of this today and not even interested in composting, do use your leaves. And to me, that's the most important, one of the most important things for you to walk away with today is.
Aren't pine needles more acidic?
They are, well, they are, but not once they're dry.
When they're
not
green.
once when
When
yeah,
they're
when
green.
they're
When
dead,
they're
they're
green,
not.
okay.
Yeah, they're fine.
Yeah, she asked about ash.
Ash. We do put it in our compost piles, but in thin layers. You want to be careful with that because you don't want to raise your potassium level potash level too high. I don't like it, but to put too much of it in there, just be careful in small amounts and on that.
Charlene?
You have a question over here.
Oh, okay.
I don't think I would use black walnut leaves,
I did for years and years.
because nothing ever grows under a black walnut.
Right, I did, so it had no reaper, but we only had one tree,
Yeah,
so.
so you probably would put in pure walnut leaves.
Right, I only had one tree, yeah. And, but I used to ask that question if people had a black walnut tree, and nobody ever did, so I quit asking.
I don't think it would be a problem on our part.
So, but, if you're in doubt, don't use it. Don't use it if you're in doubt. And I know y'all know this, but my goodness, the internet, YouTube, is a world of information. I'm just giving y'all just the baby here, just to get your feet wet on this. But there's YouTubes that you can join that they go way into it and all of that you can just constantly be getting information, on it. So, molasses. Let me get a drink of water.
Where do you get it? Where do you get that much? You're saying 20 pounds. Where are you going to get that?
This is horticultural molasses. So you can get it at Farmers and Bryan. I don't know if you can get it here or not because I've never bought it. You can?
Centerville
Where?
Feed.
So, at the feed store.
Centerville Feed Store.
Right, horticultural. I'm not saying you can't use grandma's molasses when you have, when you're through making your pecan pies and you've had enough.
Too expensive.
But that would be mighty expensive. My grandma's molasses does go in my compost pile when it's nearing expiration date or whatever. It's just that you can buy it by the 5-gallon bucket. You can buy it wet or dry. I prefer the wet. I don't know why, but I just do. I think I just like going out there and pouring it. I don't know.
So you just pour it in your compost.
Your face.
Do what?
You just pour it in your compost.
Yeah, I walk a grid.
Okay. For a fire apropos, I'm going ahead.
Karen brought a couple of things up to me earlier that I had not thought of. I just found this and I put it, the fire ant repellent and the weed thing on here for people that are all natural. Whether it works or not, I don't really know. But this is a repellent, not a killer. So you're just going to move them from one place to another. But if you're, I don't think anything kills them.
No, they all just.
I don't even think you can light them on fire. I think they just go deeper down in the ground. And so, anyway, molasses is very rich in carbohydrates as well as mineral nutrients. The carbohydrate is what the main key is. And I always tell, in my class, I always say, man, y'all know how good a Snickers bar is. And so what you're doing is you're giving your compost pile a little Snickers bar. You know, when you do it, you're giving it an extra treat, and it boosts the microbe activity. It really boosts and get it, because they're like, oh man, we got a piece of cake today. And so so that's kind of what you're doing. I wouldn't do it all the time, but you know, for a special treat, molasses is good for the compost pile to kind of get the microbes in a good mood and get them going. So there again, it gets the microbe activity going. It comes in dry or liquid. So another thing that, talking about carbohydrates, that you may never think of, you know, the liter Cokes. If you're having company and you know, you're going to buy the liter Cokes, you know, if you're going to serve Coke to your company, and it never all gets drank and it's no good the next day, or you can already tell a huge difference by the next day. That pour your flat Cokes. What they're going for is that sugar. And so, and I don't know if y'all know it, but a 16 ounce Coke has 18 tablespoons of sugar. So you're going for that, for the sugar activity on that. So you can just go out there and pour your Cokes also in the compost pile, because they'll like that, you know. So
How often do you do that?
just whenever I have a Coke that goes flat, and that will help. That will also help with the keeping your compost pile moist, pouring stuff like that. But I mean, orange juice, grape juice, fruit punch, any of those, you can pour them in the compost pile.
Another thing a lot of people don't think of is when you boil potatoes or
Yes, but I was going to get, yes, spaghetti water.
or anything like that.
Right.
Leftover tea, leftover coffee, if somebody
Yes.
wants to drink it, don't pour it down the drain, put it on your compost
I
pile.
put it on your compost pile. Coffee, I pour straight in my flower bed.
I don't think it has enough salt in it that it would,
Pardon?
I don't think it would have enough salt that it would harm your compost pile.
What was it?
She said what has salt in it.
Salt,
Okay.
the salt in the water.
There's not going to be enough salt in the water. Unless you just dump a whole lot of salt. But no, there's not. If it's your regular salting the water, no, it won't be enough to harm it. So, okay, now we're to microbes. My second favorite subject on composting. And now I didn't go to college or anything, so I didn't take biology in high school, so I am by no means a professional when it comes to microorganisms. So all I'm doing here is the infant. This gets so much more technical than, and I keep saying I'm going to do better, and I never do. But anyway, I just want you to kind of know what is going on inside your compost pile, and that these microbes and fungi and all of that play an important part of it. So you have different stages, who knew, but you have different stages of composting. So your first stage, that's where your bacteria, where your sugar and carbohydrates are readily available at this stage. And then that gets depleted. And then the second stage of composting is when your Actinidiomyces, which is a bacteria, helps break down the woody stems. So that's what breaks down your stems and that sort of stuff in your compost pile. Newspaper, and that's also what gives it its earthy smell. So it's the second stage of composting. The third stage is when your fungi comes in, and it is a powerful where it decomposes complex compounds to break down the fat and cellulose. So see, there is a microbe, because you're going to get some fat, some oil and grease. There's no way you're going to be able to totally prevent it. I'm not saying go out there with a cup of oil, but it's going to get in there, and that's what kind of helps break that. And also, I'm sure it's talking about the fat and the vegetables and all of whatever that you put in there. So that's your stages of composting. So, okay, this is hard to see, but I just wanted, this is your circle of life in the compost pile. Oh yeah, y'all got the, hot dog. Okay, I forgot y'all had the dip. So you can kind of see where it starts down here, and then of course it kind of goes off in different, so here you got beetles, and you're going to have insects in your compost pile. When I first started composting, I freaked out first time I saw some insects, but you need them in there. They need that. They have a job to do, and you need them. So it is very normal to have insects. So you got beetles and earthworms and all of that. Anyway, they go what, and then they go. We'll talk about these guys in just a minute. And then you've got bacteria coming up, and then bacteria leads off in that, and then you've got molds that are in there, and anyway, so you can kind of see how it starts and how it just makes a circle, kind of makes a circle around. I don't know, I thought that was very interesting.
So ants aren't bad for the compost pile?
You don't really, you have a lot of them. The thing about would be fire ants.
They always get in there.
Yeah.
They always get in there.
Because you really, fire ants, you want to be able to get in there and use it and not. So I don't have trouble with fire ants in mine at all. Does somebody else?
I've got plenty of them. You want them?
In your compost pile?
No, in my yard.
Oh, I do too, but they don't have a tendency to get in my compost pile.
Because it's too hot?
Maybe, and that may be it. Okay. And too, that they've gotten to where they like to burrow down in the, and in a compost pile, you get it in a heat. There may be too much air and all of that, maybe. But I don't have problems with ants in mine. So, so you wonder, okay, well, what happens to all that? Is everybody in there together? Is all the fungi and the bugs and all of that, are they all in there together or what? Or maybe you never thought about it. But, so your first level, they eat the primary organisms that are in, so that's your first level of composting. So once they've done that, well, that's your soldier flies, mites, snails, and sow bugs. Then your second level, well, they eat the soldier flies, mites, and sow bugs. And then they eat the springtails, the flatworms, and the beetles. Now, there are good beetles. There are good worms. There are good, people think about some of these, oh, yuck, but there are good flatworm, you think of flatworms, yucky and stuff. But anyway, the third level, they eat the second consumers, which are the centipede, the predatory mites, and the rogue beetles. So that's kind of gives you an idea. So when you go out and dig in your compost pile and you see you've got soldier flies, mites, snails, you're at the first level. And if you're seeing springtails, flatworms, and that, you're at the second level. So that kind of gives you an idea of what level, that your compost might be at. And it's going to be obvious when you can use it. It's going to be dark. And it needs to be as damp as a wrung out sponge. I mean, you'll know when you can use, when is ready to use. Okay, just some uncommon that you may not think about, items that you can put in the compost. You can do blood meal and bone meal to substitute for manure, and it'll do just as good of a job. You might want to bury that though. You could, I know that some critters really like blood meal for sure. Citrus peels, that's something you may not think of. Corn cobs, I put corn cobs in mine. I don't shred them or anything like that. They do decompose, it takes them a little while. If they get in my way, I just move them over and just roll them over to the side. Hair is good, but untreated hair. No permanents, no dyes, no anything. But you can put human hair in the compost. I would not put dog, like when you brush your dog or anything like that, if you're using, which you should be, using a flea medication or heartworm medication, because that's going to come out in their hair. So I wouldn't put any kind of animal hair. Pea shells, to me, they're great in a compost pile, but what we do with our pea shells, when we pull up the vines, we just pull them and lay them to the side, and that's our walkway for our next garden. We just let the peas decompose down on the garden aisles of the walkways of the garden, and we don't put them in the compost pile. We kind of went over pine needles. People don't think about waste from aquariums. You can use aquarium waste. So a lot of times people don't think about that. Kitchen wastewater, we kind of went over that. Spaghetti water, potato water. If you have anything that you've boiled in water, you know, rather than throw it down the sink, it can go in the compost pile. Manure, I think we kind of covered that enough on that. Just don't use it. Just don't use it. It's just the best thing. You can use chicken manure, and I know a lot of people will use it straight from Madisonville and put it on their yards and stuff and have good luck. I'm going to tell you, let it compost a year. I don't feel comfortable telling you that you can use chicken manure right away. I did one time and burnt every pot plant, every plant in my flower bed, everything. I burned it completely up. So I'm not going to, if you do you.
Well, you have to let it stay for
let it sit a year.
Until
Yes, yes. That's what, like I said, I know a lot of people use it and they have good luck with it. They're okay. I could not. I would feel horrible if I told you that and you burn up everything. I can't do it. So let it sit for a year before you use it. Also, if you're using it in your flower beds, and of course as master gardeners, we need to be doing this anyway, but if you're using it in your flower beds, soil test, soil test, soil test. And you should be doing that at least every 2 years anyway. But if you're using chicken manure from the mushroom place, you do need the soil test often. And that's basically all I'm going to cover on that. So, materials to avoid. Some of these are going to be obvious, but human feces and pet waste, I mean, that's obvious. We did diseased plants, large amounts of grease, I kind of covered that. You don't want to go out there and pour a cup full of your grease, but if a little bit of grease gets in there, it's not going to hurt it. And materials that are too large to decompose, you need to shred them first.
That includes chicken peel?
I don't. It's going to compost, you know, sooner or later. Like I said, if it's in the way, move it out of the way. If it's in your way when you go to use it. But citrus peels still are good. to put in your compost pile. So we'll troubleshoot real quick. If you have a foul odor coming, you've cut off the oxygen to your compost pile, is what you've done. There's not enough oxygen in there, and you've caused it to be anaerobic, and it will give off a foul odor, and there won't be any question about it whatsoever. So you just turn the pile and add more brown material, and it'll level itself out. Ammonia odor is too much nitrogen. The same thing. You're going to add brown material. Low temperature, you know, it says the pile's too small, or little moisture, little aeration. I slow compost anyway. That's for if you really want to get, really want to get compost quickly. I'm only going to use it once a year, so I don't care if it takes from March to March to get it. I'm not going to use it, maybe a little bit here and there, but not to the degree that I use it, when I'm in the springtime, when I'm doing a good cleanup or whatever. If you get a high temperature on yours, call me. I want to know. I've never known anybody to get a high temperature, but you can get high enough that it could catch on fire. So turn that sucker if you get a really high temperature. So, but if you do, well, call the fire department first if you need to. Then call me, and I want to see it. Pests, don't add meat or dairy to your compost pile. It's not going to ruin your compost pile, and you're probably going to get a little meat, a little dairy in there. What it does is it calls for unwanted critters, is what it does. Well, we don't drink milk or anything, so I don't ever have that. But if I have meat scraps, they go out to the compost pile with me, because I have a dog who thinks it's the greatest thing in the world. We do this together as a team, and she's got the meat ate before we get back to the porch. So I put meat in mine just so that the dog and I have an activity to do. But it's not going to ruin it. It's just could get an unwanted critter that you may not want. So just keep that in mind. There again, remember too, if you don't want any critters ever when you go to the compost pile to put your stuff in there, you need to dig a hole, put it in there, and cover it up, and that'll keep them. There again, I just lay it on top and just let it go from there. So now we know what to put in our compost pile, what to put in, what not to put in, what are the stages of the compost pile, and all of that. So now we're going to build one. So, you got to start somewhere, and when you first started, it's going to take a little while till you get it going, and then you can kind of, like with anything else, get it going good. But you're going to begin with the brown layer. So you're going to layer a brown layer, layer a green layer, layer a brown layer, layer a green layer. You're going to want to water it down. And when you're first starting, you're going to want to kind of water it down a little bit every so often as you're layering it, so that it gets good and moist in there and not wait on a rain to do it. So be sure that your materials are chopped or shredded. To start out, you may want to start out with smaller particles just when you're starting out. You'll add 2 shovelfuls of finished compost if you have it, or you could go buy a bag of compost from Hobby Lobby, from Home Depot to get started. And why do you think that you would add finished compost when you're starting? Thank you, the microbe activity. So, and then you're going to add water, and you're going to continually alternate that into the layers about 3 or 4 feet square, which we'll kind of go over next, kind of what type of bin. But you can just compost flat on the ground. We did from the very beginning. You don't have to have a bin or whatever. You can just go out there and just throw it on the ground and start one there. But you don't get it more than 3 to 4 feet, especially if you're doing it on the ground, because the wider you get it, the less activity, it's not going to decompose as well. It's going to be hard to keep it warm and to keep it moist and all that. And every week, turn the pile and add water if needed. Starting out, you may want to kind of do that once you get it going. There again, I don't turn mine, so it composts. So these are the types of structures. This is a wire bin. This is one of those pallets that, those oak pallets that you can get. And this is the 3-bin system, which is the ultimate. If you ask me, you have finished compost ready to go. Well, I think one of these, they're keeping perhaps their materials in one, and then have finished compost, and then working on one. But that, to me, that's the ultimate. But you see, you don't have to have anything fancy. There again, you can just do it on the ground if you want to. If you want to just kind of see if you like it or not, don't invest a lot of money. Kind of think outside the box and of what you can. Okay, so you should have this handout too. Let's see, let me get mine so I can remember what these look like.
Last page.
So you have which one's first? The wood and wire bin. So you can kind of see it's made out of wood, wood. I don't know what the wood is, if it's 1x4s or whatever. And then, you have your wire in the middle of that for airflow and stuff. One thing about your compost bin that you need to remember, you need to be able to make it accessible, easy for you to get in it, get it out. Otherwise, you know what? You're not going to do it. You're going to keep putting it off because it's too much trouble to get in there and get your compost. So that's one thing in all of that you really need to remember, is make it accessible enough to where you can get in and out of there. The next one is the pallet. And on that one, they're using the oak pallets that you can get from, I don't know if they give them to you or you have to buy them, but you can see there, and they just ran wire through that. Now this would be hard to get into and use it unless that one of these is like a gate where you can open it and get in it. Otherwise, well, I guess you might could pick it up and move it and start, over again. And then the 3-bin, circle bin. So the circle bin, to me, is going to be the cheapest that you could do if you were just trying it out, but it's going to be the hardest to get the compost out of there. So you would just fill it up. Of course, then you've got the top of it that's not, when you get ready to use the bottom, you've got the top layer that's not going to be composted. So you're going to have to pick it up, move it, probably put that top layer on the bottom where you moved it, and then start over again. But just to see if you like it or not, but you may even have enough of that laying around to do that, just to see if you want to compost in the first place. And the movable bin, the movable bin and the 3-bin system to me are, well, the movable not so much. It's done with concrete blocks, and what they've done is they've got finished and waiting, waiting for you to put it working debris for the working and then the finish. But what they're moving is they're moving those concrete blocks along. Well, they kind of have a garden there, but you'll see in the picture how they're moving it from one to the other. That's going to be that would be a lot of hard work, but it just, maybe you can take that idea and spin off of it and make something that works better for you. The 3-bin system to me is the one that makes the most sense, and that's where you have one with debris in it, one that's working, and one that's finished. And then you always, your finished compost, you'll go straight to that, and you won't have to move anything around or whatever. So those are just some ideas of the bin systems that you can use, or do it flat on the ground and see if you like it or not, and then, go from there.
I got a question, maybe.
Okay, now, questions.
Maybe you already mentioned this, but in making the bins, is using treated wood okay, or would the chemicals kind of get off into that?
We have used treated wood, and mine has treated wood, so technically you're probably not supposed to, but I mean.
They changed the treatment. I mean, treated wood is usually copper now.
Oh, is it?
Okay, that's good to know.
It's a lighter.
Okay.
It's not the old style.
Okay, that's good to know.
Arsenic or anything.
Well, that's good to know. I'm going to add that to my notes.
Check it out first.
You can use the old straw.
Kathy,
Use the what?
Kathy, did you want to say
Oh,
something?
okay, yeah.
My liquid compost, I take a gallon jug, and if I have a banana peel, I'll stick it in my food processor and grind it up, put it back in the container, fill it up with water, and water my plants with it. Or if I have onion skins, or if I have a stem of a broccoli.
It's another way, see, that's another, did y'all all hear that? That she liquid compost, so she'll just get a container and just put her food scraps in the container and let it sit, and then she just waters her plants with, I mean, that's another way of doing it.
That's too much work.
Too much work, so, any other questions? Okay, okay.
When you shred your, like, we get a lot of mail, when you shred your mail, as long as it's not the shiny stuff or an advertisement.
I wouldn't put, of course, obviously not that plastic that's on the envelope. Yeah, as long as it's not shiny.
Okay.
So, yeah, shredded mail would be a good thing. Now, I have one last slide. I know a lot of you in here aren't master gardeners, but I left it anyway because, for one, it's so me, but, and it may be you too. So you're a master gardener when you always carry a shovel and a plastic bag in your trunk as emergency tools. You spend more time chopping your kitchen greens for the compost than cooking. And your fruit drawer in your refrigerator is full of seed packages. That's the one I'm most guilty of. So anyway, and if there's no other questions, that's it. How did